Something inside the dead palace of Orland had been waiting 30 years, and last night it finally came for Adesua. She was already on her knees in the dirt of the dead palace courtyard, barefoot, nightgown, a lantern she did not remember lighting burning in her hand. She did not walk here. She knew she did not walk here, but the red soil pressed deep into her knees and palms told her that her body had made this journey without her. She forced herself to look up at the throne room entrance and watch something that had been standing there, watching her wake up, take one slow step back into the dark. It was not hiding, it was waiting to be seen. If you are new here, subscribe right now and do not leave this video. Because what this dead palace wants from Adesua, her mother already died trying to stop it. 24 hours earlier, Adesua had never planned to stay more than 2 days. The bus dropped her at the junction where the tarred road ended and Orland began, a red dirt path swallowed on both sides by thick bush that pressed so close it felt like the trees were leaning in to look at her. She dragged her small bag and walked into the village the way city people always walked into old places, chin up, eyes forward, already calculating how quickly she could leave. Orland was not small exactly. It was dense. Compounds stacked close together, the smell of evening soup drifting from open kitchens, old men on wooden benches outside the barber's shop who stopped talking when she passed. Children chased a bicycle wheel down the center of the road until a woman's voice cracked like a whip from somewhere inside a compound and they scattered. Adesua almost smiled. She had not been back since her mother's burial 3 years ago. She had not planned to come back at all. But the land her mother left behind was now caught in a dispute that only her physical presence could resolve, a boundary matter involving the family plot on the eastern edge of the village. She found the record office without asking anyone. A low building with a zinc roof and a wooden door painted green so many years ago the paint had cracked into scales. Inside, an old man sat behind a desk crowded with ledgers and folders stacked with the precision of someone who had spent a lifetime organizing other people's claims. Bamais, the village record keeper. She gave her name, she explained the land matter, she said her mother's name. Bamais's pen stopped moving. Not slowly. It stopped the way a person stops when they hear something that frightens them all at once, completely. He did not look up immediately. When he did, something careful had arranged itself over his face like a mask pulled on in a hurry. "Your mother's land," he said, "borders the back wall of the dead palace." He set the pen down. "No document in this office touches that boundary." Adesua leaned forward. "What does that mean?" "It means no one has been willing to sign for it in 30 years. "Why?" Bamais looked at her for a long moment. "You are not the first from your blood to come and ask." Something cold moved through her chest. What happened to the others who asked? He said they stopped asking. Then he opened a different ledger and said nothing more. She tried 3 more questions. He answered none of them. She left. Outside, she did not see him reach into his desk drawer, pull out a small rusted bell, and ring it once. She did not hear it either, but something beneath the dead palace did. Mama F's guest house was loud and warm and smelled of frying plantain and camphor. Mama F herself was a wide woman with a laugh that arrived before she did, who fed Adesua pounded yam with 2 types of soup, without asking what she wanted, and deflected every question about the palace with cheerful precision. "Ain't that place, old story, eat your food, the soup will get cold. People say there's a light that moves inside it at night. People say too many things, have more meat." But when Adesua looked up from her plate without warning, Mama F's hands were shaking around her own cup. She did not sleep well that night. She lay on the narrow guest house bed listening to the sounds of the village settle into night, a distant radio, a dog, a generator coughing somewhere, and when she finally turned toward the window, she saw it. A light inside the dead palace, moving slow and deliberate from one end of the structure to the other. Not a torch, not a phone, Something that moved the way living things move, with intention, with purpose, like it was looking for something specific. Then it stopped, and in the dark space where it had been, nothing. She told herself it was a night watchman. She told herself there were reasonable explanations. She fell asleep telling herself this. She woke up on her knees in the palace courtyard. Comment below right now, would you have run or would you have gone back in? Tell me. And if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. This story is just getting started. The soil was in the creases of her palms. The lantern beside her bed was still warm. Adesua sat on the edge of the mattress for a long time without moving. Then she got dressed, went out into the morning village and found Chukwu. He was not hard to find. He was the kind of young man every village had, tall, talkative, knew everything about everyone, mixing cement outside a half-finished compound wall when she walked up, and asked him directly what he knew about the dead palace. He looked at her, then he set down his trowel and wiped his hands. "Sit down," he said. He told it the way village people told old horror, casually at first, almost like gossip, his voice easy and his eyes on the middle distance. King Ormison III, the wealthiest trading king in 3 village territories. The palace he built with walls plastered in ground river pearl mixed into the mud. Merchants from the river kingdoms who rested under his roof. The kind of prosperity that made people say God had personally arranged things in that man's favor. Then the palace died before the king did. The cooking fire in the royal kitchen refused to light. The talking drum cracked down the center without anyone touching it. The king's wives began sleepwalking to the back gate of the compound every night at the same hour, drawn like they were following a sound only they could hear. Adesua's hands went still in her lap. "One of the wives," Chukwu said, his voice dropping now quieter, "was from your family, your grandmother. She was the king's chief land witness, one of his wives." He said it like common knowledge, like something every person in Or land learned young. Adesua had never been told, not once, not by her mother, not by anyone. "Chukwu," her voice came out steadier than she felt, "what made the palace die?" He picked up his trowel. "There is a difference," he said, "between what this village knows and what this village will say out loud." He went back to his wall. The conversation was over. She went to find Bamais. His office was locked. A small boy sat on the step outside, drawing in the dirt with a stick. She asked if Bamais was inside. The boy looked up. Baba Bamais said if the city woman comes, tell her the bell has already been rung. Adesua stood there for a moment. Then she turned and walked toward the dead palace, not because she was brave, because there was nowhere else left to go. She noticed, as she walked through the village, that people saw her coming and stepped aside. Nobody warned her. Nobody called out. They just watched her go with expressions that had already accepted something she had not yet understood. That was more frightening than anything Chukwu had said. The palace from outside looked abandoned. From inside it felt held, preserved for a purpose, the way a trap is kept clean. The walls still stood. The courtyard was overgrown but intact. She moved through it and into the main structure, her footsteps loud in the silence, past doorways that opened into dark, cold rooms that smelled of damp earth and old wood. The throne room stopped her at the entrance. The floor was swept clean. No dust, no debris, no footprints except hers forming fresh behind her. Someone or something maintained this room, kept it ready. The crack ran down the center of the floor perfectly straight, edge to edge like a seam, not settling ground, a deliberate line. She stared at it and felt the specific cold of a thing that should not exist. The symbol was on the wall to her left. She saw it and her breath left her body. Her mother had that mark on her wrist, a small raised tattoo she had carried since before Adesua was born and never explained beyond calling it an old family thing. Adesua had traced it with her finger as a child while her mother braided her hair. She would have recognized it anywhere. Behind a collapsed pillar in the corner, she found the bundle. Documents, wrapped in old cloth and tied with twine. She opened them with hands that would not stay completely steady. Land documents, survey notes, and the handwriting on every page was her mother's, neat, slightly leftward slanting, the way it always was. Dated 2 weeks before her mother died. Her mother had stood in this exact room, had touched these exact walls, had been here and never said a word. At the bottom of the bundle, wrapped separately in a piece of cloth bearing the same symbol, drawn in something dark and dried, was a small folded note, 3 words in her mother's hand. Do not kneel. The knock came from beneath the cracked floor. Slow 3 times, measured, not random, deliberate, the way someone knocks when they know you are home and they are reminding you they are still outside. Adesua ran. She hit Bamais at the palace entrance. He was standing there, still, unhurried, blocking the exit the way a man stands when he has been waiting and knows exactly how long it takes. Do not go anywhere. What Bamais is about to tell her, it changes everything you think you know about this story. He did not move aside immediately. He looked at the bundle in her hands, and something in his face loosened, like a knot that had been held too long finally giving way. Walk with me, he said. They sat on the low wall of the palace boundary. He spoke slowly, each piece of the truth arriving like something dragged up from depth. He was not only the record keeper. He was the last living witness keeper, a role his grandfather had accepted on behalf of the village, binding their family to the pact as its human anchor until completion. The pact. King Ormison had made an agreement with something ancient that lived beneath the land, older than the kingdom, older than the village's oldest name for itself. The elders called it Okishi, the one who sits under thrones, 30 years of unbroken prosperity, trade that never failed, rains that always came. In exchange, at the end of 30 years, a living heir from the chief witness family, not death, occupation. Okishi needed a body from that bloodline to move through the land freely, to finally rise. The 30 years ended the season. Adesua's mother died. Adesua's voice came out very quiet. My mother didn't die of illness. She came here trying to use the boundary stones to dissolve the pact, Bamais said. The stones that mark the palace territory, if repositioned correctly, they collapse Okishi's claim back into the earth beneath the throne and seal it. Your mother had worked it out over years. She got as far as the throne room. He stopped. She ran out of time, Adesua said. He nodded. The bell, she turned to look at him fully. When I came to your office, you rang the bell. Bamais closed his eyes. I am bound to signal when the heir arrives. I have carried this obligation my whole life. I rang it and I have not slept since. He opened his eyes and they were wet. I am dying, Adesua. The witness keeper dies when the pact completes. I rang that bell and I am sorry. I am so sorry. She sat with that for a moment. Then the sleepwalking. It has already started. Yes. She stood up. She looked at the palace. She looked at the document bundle in her hands. Then she walked back in. She did not run this time. She moved through the courtyard with intention, the way her mother must have moved, knowing what needed to be done, knowing the cost of failing. The boundary stones were 8 in total, set at intervals around the outer palace wall, half buried in the ground, older than anything else in Orland. Her mother's documents mapped each one with precise measurements. Move each stone exactly 1 handspan inward, closing the territorial claim, collapsing the agreement back into the earth. The cold thickened as she started on the first stone. The knocking from beneath the throne room floor grew, faster, louder, no longer measured, something urgent now in the rhythm, something that understood what she was doing. She moved the second stone. The third. Her hands were bleeding from the edges of the rocks, but she did not stop. She could hear her own breathing, and beneath it, underneath everything, a low sound rising from the ground itself like a pressure building. She moved the 7th stone. The palace entrance blew open. every door inside the structure swinging wide at once, a sound like the building inhaling. She moved the eighth stone. Silence. Complete total silence. The cold lifted, the knocking stopped. She stood in the dark of the palace boundary, breathing hard, waiting to feel something more, and then, slowly, the ordinary night sounds of Orland returned. A dog, a distant radio, the world remembering itself. She went back to the throne room. The crack in the floor was sealed. A straight seam of compressed earth, closed as if it had never been open. She crouched and pressed her palm against it and felt nothing beneath it, no cold, no pressure, nothing waiting. She allowed herself one long breath. Then she looked at the document bundle still in her hand and realized there was a piece she had missed. A small folded note stuck flat against the back of the cloth, invisible until now. She opened it. Her mother's handwriting, neat, slightly leftward slanting. If you are reading this, you moved the stones and you made it. I am so proud of you. You were always braver than you knew. But Adesua, the boundary only holds the one beneath the throne. I never found out what lives in the room on the left. Adesua raised her eyes slowly. There was a door on the left side of the throne room. She had been in this room twice tonight. She had never seen that door before. It was open just slightly, a thin dark gap. And from behind it, the sound of a child humming, soft and tuneless and familiar in a way that reached into her chest and pulled. Her mother used to hum that song, every evening when she was cooking, every night when she thought Adesua was already asleep. Adesua stood in the sealed throne room of the dead palace of Orland, her mother's final note in her bleeding hands, and stared at the door that should not exist. Subscribe right now and turn on your notifications. Part 2 is coming, and whatever is behind that door has been waiting far longer than Okishi ever did. Drop a comment and tell me, does she open it?